Hi, Laura.
Hi.
The date today is May 10th, 2024, and Laura, you're here as a candidate for Hayes Township, and we are Hayes Voters for Change. We're a political committee, and Joellen and Jim Rudolph are here, and myself, Luann Cosma, today, also on the committee, but not here presently, are Bill and Betty Henney and Jerry Simpson. We're the steering committee of the group. So we sent you some questions we'd like to ask, earlier than today, and we want to take this opportunity to just begin getting to know you and about your candidacy. And our hope is that in this process we will know enough in order to do an endorsement or not, and we'll endorse the people that we believe would be the best candidates going forward for leadership in Hayes Township. The board is a 5-member elected body that includes a supervisor, a clerk, a treasurer, and 2 trustees, and they are all equal in power as far as voting goes. All of the current board is up for re-election, as I think you know, so all of the seats are re-elected every 4 years. And we just thank you for filing and as a candidate. So we're going to begin by asking questions, and we'll just have informal conversation too. And Joellen's going to start us off.
Okay. I was going to say, what is your name and what office are you running for?
Okay. I'm Laura Ford, and I have filed petition to run for the township clerk. I had friends from various groups that I'm a participant in sign my petition. I was quite pleased that the people that I know from the ukulele group and from church and from the Hayes Voters for Change and the Charlevoix Democratic Committee, my Mahjong group, that people that I know from various interests were signing my petition. So that was good. So I anticipate being on the ballot, but I haven't heard anything at all yet from the powers that be. So.
And are you running as a Republican or a Democrat?
I am a Democrat. Yeah. Yep.
So that means that you're up for the primary election on August 6th.
On August
correct?
6th. On August 6th, right. And I don't know how many people are running in the primary yet.
Oh, okay. As far as we know, and we've asked at the township and at the county, there were no other filings. So I believe you're the only Democrat running for clerk.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
Can you tell us about your background, like how long you've lived in Hayes and what brought you up here?
Sure. I have lived in Hayes Township for just over 1 year. Sunday was my 1-year anniversary of moving into my home. I moved up to the area from Kalamazoo, where I had lived for over 60 years, in March of 22, and was originally going to build a home, but decided to buy instead. And when I retired from my clinical practice, I was a nurse practitioner. I decided to follow a lifelong dream of living in northern lower Michigan. And when I was a child, I had come up north every summer. I had a wonderful childhood spending summers on Torch Lake, and northern Michigan feels like home. I'm a year-round resident. I don't snowbird. I don't bounce from one state to another or one city to another. I'm a year-round resident. And I really enjoy living in a rural community.
Okay.
So.
Could you describe what you did for a living?
Sure. I am retired now from my clinical practice. I was a nurse practitioner in primary care, mostly of women. had a special area of practice. I was very well known in the Kalamazoo community, and had a very thriving practice. It wasn't easy, but it was also relatively easy to retire from it and come up here. I also teach part-time at different universities. Lately, it's been primarily with Western Michigan University. It's where I got 2 of my degrees. My PhD is in health, and I teach in the health sciences program. Teach health policy and law primarily, but I have also a whole list of other courses that I've taught at a variety of universities, including University of Michigan, where I have my master's and my postdoctorate work. So, so I teach part-time.
Okay.
That's an incredible background.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And a township board is, by law, supposed to be looking out for the health, general welfare, and safety. I can't remember in what order there, of the people of the township. So what a pedigree you have, yeah.
Yeah, well, especially with teaching health policy and law to a variety of health disciplines, teaching them how they can work with governmental regulations and how governmental regulations impact their own practice. So that's one of the reasons why I go and observe the Northern Michigan Health Department meetings that the commissioners run, and hold them accountable to understanding the public health law. So,
Very good.
So why are you running for this office? What motivated you?
well, I believe in integrity, and that policies and regulations are present to protect all residents in a democracy. Elected officials are to serve with integrity and veracity at the will of the people. And they do the majority good by following regulations. This area of Michigan is a slice of heaven. Hayes Township has more borders of water than I believe any other township in the state of Michigan, because we're bordered on the north by Lake Michigan, which I can see from my front porch when the leaves are off the trees. It's
Actually, with
wonderful.
north and west.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then on the south border, Lake Charlevoix. So we have these wonderful bodies of water and all of these natural preserves and inland lakes, and it contributes so much to the natural beauty and health and well-being of the residents. So, and I believe that those who live here should be good stewards of the land and the health and integrity of our fellow community members. So I became a little alarmed at the veracity of our township officials when I learned how they were handling the key issues of the watershed and the gravel pit. So I started to become involved and feel like perhaps my skill set would be helpful for me to start taking care of the community.
So following from that, what skills and background would you bring to the job? You mentioned you teach policy and regulations and things. You-
I think my background in healthcare would be a bonus. When I was in practice, my patients knew that I cared for them. I provided relationship-based care. I only practiced evidence-based medicine. I didn't treat any individual differently based on their insurance or their ability to pay or where their address was. And I would like to apply those same principles to the way that I take care of my community. You know, much like the way I'm taking care of this home that I bought, trying to make it environmentally conscious and taking care of the beautiful 5 acres that I own.
What goals would you like to accomplish if you're elected as clerk?
One of the first things that I feel need to happen is a change in the way that the meetings are run. I think there's a need for good communication between residents and the board. I also believe that a land acknowledgement should be read at the beginning of every meeting, similar to what we read for the Charlevoix Democratic Committee. The state of Michigan occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe, Three Fires. I better put on my reading glasses.
Tough words to say too.
I can't read my writing. Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, Ojibwa, Chippewa, and Potawatomi. I believe that should then go on to say that the Hayes Township Board recognizes historic indigenous communities in Michigan and those who were forcibly removed from their homelands. We further recognize the ongoing relationship of dependence upon and respect for all living beings of earth, sky, and water. In offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm indigenous sovereignty, history, and experiences. And that's one of the first things I'd like to see changed, that there's a respect for the land and for the residents of Hayes Township, that there's more open communication. I think there should be the establishment of a recreation and preservation of the environment initiative, more than what we currently have, to recognize the wonderful resources that we have in Hayes Township, including Seagull Park and the natural preserves and Susan Lake and the lake shore, and that this recreation board should participate with the experts at Tip of the Mitt Watershed Council and DNR, and that there should be some significant consideration for the health and well-being of the land. I think that information should be available and accessible. I would hate to think that anyone would have to file any Freedom of Information Act petition because I was withholding information. The office is at the will of the people, and there are confidential pieces of information, but most of the information should be freely accessible to anybody who needs to know that for their own peace of mind. I do believe that Hayes Township is in a unique position to inform the residents about legislative efforts at the state level, so that they can be interactive with their legislators. For example, Michigan does not have a unified sanitary code, and that needs to be done to protect our watershed. There is currently some legislative efforts to strip local government of the right to control zoning for land mining. And that information needs to be made available to the residents of Hayes Township through written publication or the internet, so that they can be very actively involved in that. I would approach it very similarly to the way that I approached my practice, which was to listen, to establish a relationship with my patients, to educate them about what was going on with their health, and trust that they would make sound decisions. So, my major goal would be to follow state and federal guidelines for how we run the government.
Part of the clerk's job, I believe they help, I'm not sure exactly who does the budget, but they do a lot of the record keeping. You know, in addition to running the elections and keeping up the voter file and all that, they do a lot of work with the budget and the bookkeeping, I believe. They kind of work in tandem with the treasurer. In your practice, did you have experience doing that kind of thing? Or,
Oh, yeah, and in other capacities of leadership, yes, working with a budget and trying to be good steward. So, yeah, there have been other roles that I have played that I've been involved in management outside of, managing my own practice. But so, for example, the church that I was a member of in Kalamazoo, I was a congregational deacon and a ruling elder and the health minister. And so there were budgetary issues. And I served on several committees. I actually got to tick something off my bucket list by building a labyrinth by myself, 100-foot diameter labyrinth.
What is that?
For a labyrinth,
Yeah.
it's
It's nice.
a patterned walk that you go on for contemplative physical
Oh, I
movement.
see, okay.
Yeah, and I was one of the founding members of the Michigan Council of Nurse Practitioners. It's a very active group that does education and advocacy. And I also started a free health clinic in Kalamazoo and ran it its first year until we had grant funding to take over that position. So I've done other leadership roles, usually as part of a group, not a singular leader, never autocratic, and a Democrat.
so have you done grant writing and grant application?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's something that, that's a skill set this board doesn't seem to have. Okay.
Yeah, so grant writing, yeah.
What do you think are the major issues for the township? You mentioned the gravel pit is one issue, but what do you think are the main things that you really would like to focus on?
Equitable application of regulations and rules so that all residents of Hayes Township have an equal voice, regardless of the size of their home. They were saying at the Rural Caucus meeting that I attended that in northern Michigan, people tend to either have to have 3 jobs or they have 3 homes. And Hayes Township is unique in that we're a mix of rural and resort. And not all of the residents live here year-round, like us sitting around this table. And although they do have the right to have their voice, they shouldn't be the dominant voice. It should be everybody's concern. whether it's somebody wanting to dredge the lake to put in more boats, whether it's somebody wanting to ignore the covenant about a gravel pit, how it was going to end and when it was going to end. There just doesn't seem to be equitable application of rules. And so that, I think, is one of the big issues. A secondary issue that probably falls right in line with that is respect for the natural habitat of Hayes Township. You know, respect for the land and the health and well-being of the land.
We do have a pretty good ordinance that, as Bill Henney says, is a model ordinance for northern Michigan, actually. And I think we've talked to you in the past about some of the changes that are going on, that they've been redoing the ordinance and in ways that a lot of us feel are weakening it and removing those protections for the shore, which in turn protects the water quality of the lake, of course. So all of those waterfront resort people are, responsible for that just as much as anyone, if not more than everyone. So what are your positions on, I guess, shoreline protection, the zoning ordinance in particular, and the current effort to change it?
Well, I would approach the problem the same as I would any clinical problem that I had. I need to educate myself and fully understand the scope of the problem. I need to understand the different points of view. And I need to bring in experts. I practiced evidence-based medicine, and I want to practice evidence-based leadership. We have these wonderful resources up in northern Michigan. And I believe that they need to be at the table with those decisions. And ultimately, as an elected official, I would be responsible for voting, but it would be based upon expertise and what the residents of Hayes Township want.
Good. Do you want to talk about the park? Is the park in here?
Yes, let's go to
Yeah.
number 5.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, how familiar are you with the Hayes Township Park Camp Seagull? Have you been there? Do you know its history? And what improvements would you recommend being done to the park?
I love that camp. The dogs really enjoyed it too. I took the boys there for a romp, and they really enjoyed it. I think the two things that I thought were unique that could be improved upon, great boat ramp. I thought that was great, but there's really not a good beachfront, and so that Hayes Township residents have a place to go to enjoy Lake Charlevoix. I think that'd be really good to improve the beachfront. I think a pavilion would be nice, maybe not something so grand as what they have in Boyne City, but but some kind of a covered area where people could have picnics and family gatherings, and the parents could sit while their kids have a game or something. Yeah.
Are you familiar at all with the Recreation Committee? It's a very small group of people, and they did have an online survey of the residents, but not many people knew about it. So we several of us attended the planning committee, planning commission meeting, I think, questioning the validity of the survey, and they were basing a lot of decision making at that point on a very small number of residents.
Yeah.
How would you address something like that?
Well, I have a PhD, so I care about research, and I want to know that my statistics are reliable. So so I would look at that and make sure everybody had a chance to make a voice. So.
Okay. Anything else?
I think we have a question here about, right, the zoning administrator. As you know, presently, or maybe you don't know, that presently the supervisor is also hired as the township zoning administrator. And the zoning administrator is the one who executes, the permits for, that property owners wanted to do when they do a project, and they have to follow the zoning ordinance. So it's actually carrying out the zoning ordinance. They're not supposed to create a new zoning ordinance, but so currently our supervisor is basically his own boss. What are your opinions or opinion on this dual role?
I believe that that's a conflict of interest. And much the same as in healthcare, we were not self-supervised. We were bound by protocols, and there were several safety measures put in place. I think that's true when you're taking care of a community. So I have concerns about the accountability when you're filling in different roles. And if it's necessary to do because there's a lack of individuals who could fill in those roles, then there should be oversight from a neighboring zoning board or township. There needs to be accountability.
How do you feel about the township finding a new zoning administrator based on everything that's happened with the current zoning ordinance,
Well,
current zoning administrator?
I do believe it's necessary if there is a full new slate of elected officials that everything gets cleared. And although we could benefit from the history of other individuals, my understanding is that that can lead to divisiveness and some difficulties if people are continuing in those same roles.
You had mentioned, we talked about the FOIA. As clerk, a lot of your job responsibility, I believe, would be to post things on the township website.
Mm-hmm.
And, transparency has been a large issue here, that things are not posted.
Mm-hmm.
Minutes, there's so many things that should go on there. How do you feel about that? Because it's going to take a lot of time to do that. Is that something you would commit to, that all the meeting minutes and reports and things should be on the internet, should be on the website, or
As long as it doesn't violate confidentiality rules, I do believe that information should be available to anyone and everyone. And the ultimate goal would be for the Board of Trustees to be so trusted by the members of the community that they understand that the board is truthful and open, and I'm used to being in a position where there's oversight. When I was functioning in the leadership roles at my church, when I was functioning as a nurse practitioner, there was oversight, and that was comforting because nobody's infallible. So,
what about accessibility? There's been an issue now with hours when the township officials are available.
yeah, I think that that's very important. I live very close to the township hall. I could walk there easily. And I think it would be good to have posted hours and a flag that is set out when one of the trustees is in office, and that if there has to be a change of hours, that's posted on the township website. And so I do believe accessibility is just a very important part of being transparent.
that
Yeah,
we-
anything else that we've missed asking about that you really wanted to make certain is in here?
I can promise that I would approach the role very similar to the over 40 years that I was in practice as a nurse practitioner. That I would offer relationship-based care for the community, that I would listen, that I could be trusted to follow procedure, follow protocol. But with the goal in mind of health and well-being of everyone. And I would turn myself inside out if I thought somebody didn't trust me in that position. So,
Oh, very good. Thank you so much, Laura, for
thank you.
informing us of your ideas and your goals, and we really appreciate this time.
Me
Was
too.
there anything else that you wanted to ask?
Look,
No?
it's a big job. Clerk's probably the biggest job.
It is.
Yeah, I'm aware
It
of
is a
that.
big job, yeah.
And this side isn't there.
And I'm ready for a challenge.
Okay,